Can you get versatility out of using a cheap cordless miter saw? Let's find out. Well, this is the RYOBI 7 1/4 inch miter saw running on their 18-volt battery platform. And we're not just using it for wood. In fact, we want to show that there's quite a bit of versatility packed in a saw like this, where you can actually cut more things than just wood, simply changing it over to cut steel as well. This is one of the RYOBI miter saws, and specifically this is the 7 1/4 inch sliding miter saw. The model number on this is the PBT01B, so it comes as a bare tool, no battery with it. We're going to be pairing it with a typical 4 amp hour RYOBI One Plus 18-volt battery. Again, 7 1/4 inch blade. Capacity is supposed to be like up to a 2x10 for a crosscut, and then I believe for a 45-degree miter, the max is going to be a 2x6 material. Now, I'm really not going to do a full review on this. In fact, I believe we've done a full review on this before. But I'm going to show just some versatility of a saw like this, where it doesn't have to be just your typical miter saw. Because let's face it, this is a $200 or $239 RYOBI cordless miter saw. It's not meant to be the best of the best, carpentry saw or the best of the best finisher saw. It's, it kind of stamps that need of the DIYer and, somebody that's messing around with needing a compound miter saw. So it's going to bevel up to 45 degrees to the left. It will not bevel to the right. And then it's going to miter up to 47 degrees to the right and up to 47 degrees to the left. So pretty common compound miter saw, right? So we can bevel, we can also miter. Now, again, that's going to depend on what size you need to do all that. And we'll cut with this here in just one moment. But we're also going to take this to another level. So let's go ahead and make a couple of cuts in this. Let's talk about it first. Real quick, I think 3,500 RPM is blade speed. It's running a 40 tooth blade on this 7 1/4 inch blade. So pretty typical 7 1/4 inch blade. Probably not a crazy good blade. It will do the work of what you need to do for some raw carpentry, but probably finished work, you may want to step that blade up just a touch. Being able to actually set depth adjustment on this, you can use this little slide thing here, kick this over and actually set the depth guide here if you don't want to make a full cross cut. Then you can cut like little didos in post, things like that. And then if you don't want to use that depth, just slide that over and then it goes through right there and you can get that full cross cut if you need to. Now here's a full, I believe it's a rip down 1x12, but I think it's right at 10 inches. So yeah, that's a true 10-inch piece of 1x material there, so probably 3/4 inches thick. And we'll just throw this in here. We'll put our 4 amp hour battery in. So left a little tab there, but still cut through that full 10-inch piece. Slides rather nicely. You have 2 rail slides back there for it to slide on. So I have to plunge that to start with, so you can see it's not the most powerful saw in the world. But it gets the work done. Okay? Typical 2x4. We'll lay this over at a 45-degree bevel. So we've got to take a little bit of time to do that. You can't just force it through. Now on the miter side, it's got stops at 0, and all I have to do is pull up on this little trigger here and I can bring it over, and it's going to have the next D10 at 15 degrees and then the next one at 22.5 degrees. and then again at 31.6 and at 45. And then I can squeeze it again and get another 2 degrees in there to the right as well as to the left. Now if I want to lock that out that's not in a detent, I can just turn down my knob here and lock that at, say, 17 degrees. Otherwise, loosen that up and just squeeze that until we get the next detent and it will lock out. So let's go ahead and take this to 45. And I've got a piece of, that's 2x8, so 7 1/4. So it's not quite going to get that full piece, but let's see. So it takes a little effort, but it did almost cut that full piece of 2x8 material. So let's get on to what I'm talking about here. So I'm going to take my battery out of here. And let's say you're in a shop scenario or job site scenario where you don't just need to cut wood from time to time, but you may also need to do a little fabrication work, cut some steel, cut some aluminum. Of course, aluminum you can cut with any general blade typically if you're careful with it. But anyway, I've got my battery out. Let me lock this down. Push my spindle lock. Pull our blade out. And I've got here a Diablo Steel Demon. Now, something that's very, very important before you just throw a steel blade into a miter saw or any type of saw. You want to make sure that your RPMs are in check. In other words, the max RPM of this blade is 5,800 and the max RPM of the saw is 3,500. So I know I'm not spinning this blade too fast. If you are spinning a blade too fast, you're going to have carbide teeth flying everywhere, and that's not fun to get in your eye or on your skin or anywhere in between. It's going to be lefty-tighty. Make sure you're good and tight. So now I've got in my Diablo Steel Demon. It could really be any steel blade, but this is the one we like to use. And also pay attention to which way you put that in, because as you can see, I have this totally backwards. Okay, so now I have my blade in there properly. My battery in. And look, this is not meant to be a replacement for your bandsaw or for your specific metal saw or anything like that. But this is meant for those that need something that's kind of handy, that's not heavy. This is a pretty light saw. I can throw this thing around. I can throw it in my truck. I can drag it around the shop wherever. I don't have to plug it in. And it enables me to now cut small steel pieces or whatever type of pieces. I can even get into large, thicker stuff as well, but obviously not as well as larger saws, but it makes really quick work of small pieces. So you can see here I've got some 1-inch tubing. Nice clean cut on that. Not a lot of sparks flying around and not too hot to hold, so not like an abrasive blade. And if I needed to make a quick 45, turn that. So making very quick work out of just a typical miter saw and putting a good blade in there, a good steel blade, and now you can actually cut steel tubing as well. Not just tubing, I can also do angle iron. Or even flat bar. Just makes it extremely easy to cut miters, cut quick cross cuts on steel, and have a nice clean cut. We need to reiterate how important it is to stay in the safety window of the RPM of the saw. So in other words, we don't want to be overspinning this blade. So the max RPM of the saw needs to be less than the max RPM of the blade. Otherwise, the carbide teeth on this blade that make it cut steel, they are going to go flying and probably not in the direction that you would like them to. So again, on a 7 1/4 inch, that typically works out. The max RPM of the blade is 5,800. The max RPM of the saw is 3,500. So we know we're spinning this at a safe speed. Typically, when you get into those 10 inch, 12 inch, 14 inch variety, you can't just throw a metal saw blade onto an abrasive saw or onto your typical miter saw. The RPMs just don't match, and you'll be ruining blades as well as creating a very hazardous situation. So again, please be careful when using a steel cutting blade. In this scenario, it works out really, really well. It's going to be great for cutting those small pieces, 1 inch tubing, 1x2, 2x2, 1/8 inch wall, things like that. Anything thicker than that, that's when you want to step into a true metal saw. Your Evolutions, some of your Milwaukees, Makitas, DeWalt's, things like that. Even abrasive saws will be fine. We typically like to stick with a cold cut saw just because it's not 500 degrees when you get done cutting. It's a nice cool to the touch, unless you've made a lot of cuts near that. Then it can tend to heat up a little bit, but still, it makes a really nice cut really quick, as well as at a rather cool temperature. So this saw runs about $239. This blade, I think, is like $35. So really, it's a cheap variety to have a cordless saw around that can also cut steel. Hey, let us know what you think. Also, keep track of us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and even TikTok. And if you don't mind, would you hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't done so already? And by all means, if you hated our video, well, give us a thumbs down, but let us know in the comments why. Have a great day and keep smiling.